Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti, hoping you guys are having a good day. And again, that you're looking after yourselves and one another. We want to welcome you back to day two of our 31 Perfect Albums. I am joined again by Bill Schuster, Ken Cheshire, and Jim Bricker. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing well.
That's all you're going to say is good. Okay.
Yes.
Many few words. Many few words.
Tarzan like music.
There you go. There you go. Start beating your chest. There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the midst of bringing to you our 31 perfect albums. Okay, so we have each picked a list of 31 albums that we think are perfection, top to bottom, all killer, no filler. And we're going to have fun with this series, guys. And hopefully you guys will enjoy this as well, as we enjoyed the painstakingly work of putting this list together. So we're going to start again with Bill.
Right.
Your second album for your 31 perfect albums for day two.
Thank you. Thank you, Armando. I'm going to go in a different direction this time. Leave the jazz world and go into a world I have even less understanding of, but still a great love for. And that is the realm of classical music. This is going to be my only classical selection on this list because I don't feel qualified, frankly. As much as I love it, I have very little intelligent to say about it. But I do want to use this as an example of really perfect classical recordings and orchestra. It's a semi-local, about 5 hours away, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. They made some famous recordings in the 50s and 60s, the early 60s, with Fritz Reiner, the dictator himself, who was not necessarily a nice person, but he was a masterful conductor. Even the musicians that couldn't stand him admitted that. And I'm going to go with, even in the 1960 liner notes, what was considered a warhorse at that time, 64 years ago. And that is Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade, which Armando might recognize because when we did our Renaissance Scheherazade and Other Stories episode a few weeks ago, I flashed about a dozen different copies of this particular classical piece
until you finally got to the right one.
Yeah, as a joke, but I do love this piece. I mean, it is truly a warhorse. I do have many copies of it. It's one of my favorites. And it was on the original here. It says it's an RCA Victor Red Seal, which I found this record a couple of years ago, but I initially got the CD copy, which stated that it was Living Stereo. So I'm a little confused about the actual history. I mean, I assumed that the original would say Living Stereo also. The fact that it doesn't, I'm a little confused by. So I didn't even notice that previously until I was going through making this list and compared my CD and my record. So, but either way, they both sound great. They use state-of-the-art recording techniques on this, on pretty much all of these Reiner and Chicago Symphony Orchestra recordings, no matter what they were working on. Something about the symphony hall that they were recording in and the techniques that the RCA recording engineers were using, they still sound good today. They still sound better than, I think, so many classical recordings from, say, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. There's just a full, rich sound. And I say good job to the Tyrant and all his musicians, because this never gets old. I would recommend any recordings you can find featuring Fritz Reiner and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra on the RCA. They're all quite good, but this just is a personal favorite.
Nice.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Indeed.
Okay. That's the gist of the show.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, Ken.
I'm venturing away from jazz too, in addition. So I'm going to go back to August 14th, 1971 with the Who's Next. Discovered this probably around 1972. I was just a young lad in junior high school and heard this on a very new AOR radio station out of Tallahassee when every evening at 11 o'clock they played an entire album. And it was one of my favorite things at the time. And I would also always make sure that I was awake at 11 o'clock just to hear something different. Of course, this is considered by many to be the Who's best album. It's arguable, but it's definitely one of my favorites. 9 songs culled from the failed Lifehouse project. This came right after Tommy, and the Lifehouse project was a multimedia experience that Pete Townsend was working on, but came across a lot of problems, and it got to the point that he decided, well, we'll just, make an album of the songs. It was originally meant to be a double album, but producer Glenn Johns, which I think we all recognize, convinced Townsend that it would be better as a single album. And so that's exactly what they did. The 2 biggest songs off the album, of course, is Baba O'Riley and Won't Get Fooled Again. One of the things that it's also known for is Townsend's early work with synthesizers, both the CS3 and the ARP, which I think he used beautifully, because rather than, I think there was a tendency to overuse synthesizers in the early days, but he used them to enhance the songs and not to replace their normal instruments. This album has some incredible songs. Bargain, John Entwistle's My Wife, The Song Is Over. I think most music fans are familiar with every song on the album, and classic radio stations that stay away from popular music charts, all these songs are played, and that's really has something to say to it. I think that this was a key album to come after Tommy, to show a different side, to show a little bit more hard rockins, Who. And of course, they were also considered by many, at least in my lifetime, to be the greatest live artists, greatest artists live in concerts. At the time, known to break records as far as decibels in their concert, and which is probably one reason why Pete has to wear hearing aids these days. So it's just a go-to. Me and Armando have spoken about the new Who's Next Lifehouse box set. That is also absolutely perfect. So again, we would recommend that to anybody that loves this album.
And they can
If
afford
you
it.
care to go ahead and sell one of your internal organs.
Yes.
But it can be gotten at a decent price online. Just
Take out a
compare
mortgage
it.
if you have to. Yeah.
They got a mortgage on. So yeah, Who's Next by The Who is always a go-to for me.
That's a good choice.
No argument for me.
It's a good choice. It's a really good choice. Okay, Mr. Brooker.
All right. I'm going to put on the cone of shame for a minute and stay in the jazz genre, even though everyone else has moved on, apparently.
How dare
But
you? Go on.
I know. But my choice will make up for it. So I'm taking off
see.
the cone of shame immediately. And I'm saying that my second perfect album is from 1962, the Bill Evans Trio, Waltz for Debbie. Now, folks that know, hey, I see that, Ken, I see that. The Waltz for Debbie was recorded at The Village Vanguard in 1961. There's actually
Mhm.
2 albums that the Bill Evans Trio came out with. One was called Sunday at the Village Vanguard, and the second was Waltz for Debbie. This was the trio of Bill on piano, Paul Motion on drums, and Scott LaFaro on bass. This may be the greatest jazz trio ever. It I there's other instances of, you know, 3 people kind of thinking and playing as one, but there's something about the Evans trio that just kicks it up a notch. They're just the interplay is just on a whole nother level. Sadly, these were the last dates that the Bill Evans trio did, because like 2 weeks after this, Scott LaFaro was in a car accident and lost his life. But you know, fortunately, they recorded that whole Sunday. Um, it's hard to kind of choose between Sunday at the Village Vanguard and Waltz for Debbie, because they're both just A+++ records. The only reason that I chose Waltz for Debbie over Sunday is the track My Foolish Heart, a jazz standard, and again, just the delicacy with which Evans approaches the melody, just the real understated accompaniment by LaFaro and Motion. It's just beautiful. Um, um, yeah, the Waltz for Debbie album has you know, After My Foolish Heart, you know, Waltz for Debbie, Detour Ahead, My Romance, Some Other Time, Milestones, Porgy, I Love You from the Porgy and Bess opera. So it's a mix of originals and standards. Milestones is the Miles Davis tune, which Evans has his own unique take on. Um, it, it's perfect for a reason. And the reason is, I guess, because I said so. And umpteen other, you know, 1,000 jazz fans tend to agree with me. I first heard Bill Evans Trio in college, which was about, you know, 40 years ago now, and it's just was the thing that really drew me into jazz as an art form. And I think Bill Evans Trio is an excellent introduction into the world of jazz, and you know, things will just sort of blossom from there. You're kind of starting at the top, but it doesn't get worse. So there's my number 2, Bill Evans Trio, Waltz for Debbie, 1962.
Yeah,
Very
good
good.
choice. Good choice. I'm learning a lot from you guys. I really am. I really am.
I'm learning a lot too.
Well,
School's in session.
education is never a waste. Ladies and gentlemen, the phrase, word repetition is going to happen quite a bit through this series. My second perfect album for day 2 is Who's Next. Okay. According to my
Great
notes,
minds.
yes, great minds do think alike. According to my notes, it was released August 2nd, 1971 through track Decca and MCA Records. Now, as Ken mentioned, this was the result of the abandoned Lifehouse project that, again, was a multimedia experience, quote unquote. But I really think that as much as other people were lost that were surrounded, that surrounded Pete Townsend as to the concept for Lifehouse, I think Pete Townsend got lost in the concept as well. He couldn't, he was thinking, and he could not get people on board as to how he wanted to do this project. I first got this album when I must have been about 15. I mean, I've always known of since I was younger than that. You know, I've known Bubba O'Reilly. I've known of, you know, Won't Get Fooled Again. Behind Blue Eyes. But I never really, and I had the album, but I just listened to those. I paid attention to those tracks. I never really paid attention to the album as a whole. And from track 1 to track 9, it is sublime. It is fantastic. A lot of people talk about Tommy being this masterpiece, and it's, it's so inventive and innovative and creative. To me, side 3 of Tommy gets a little diluted and confusing for me. Like, it kind of goes off script a bit. This is more succinct, it's more direct. Again, and you can, I don't know about you guys, but I can always tell an ARP synthesizer when I hear it, because it has a distinct sound, a distinct tone, and I can hear it through this album big time. It's a fantastic album. Starts with, Bubba O'Reilly, Bargain, the second track, with the lyric, I lose myself just to find you. It's like, these songs that are written by all written by Pete Townsend, with the exception of My Wife, are basically, the majority of them are love songs that he's writing to his wife or his girlfriend at the time. Love Ain't for Keeping, fantastic. My Wife, the one John Entwistle track that basically, he's like, he wants to get away from his wife. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, he wants to do anything but still, but be around his wife at that point. The Song Is Over is fantastic. Just very emotional. It's a very emotional track for me. It's an emotional vocal delivery from Townsend on this. Getting in Tune, fantastic. Going Mobile, just a fun song. And Behind Blue Eyes for me is what's that? It's a rebel song. It's like someone who is living on the fringes of society, saying no one knows what it's like to be the sad man. You know what I mean? To be the bad man behind blue eyes. It's like, someone that's looking on the outskirts of society and the outside of society, looking in, saying, I want to belong, but I don't know how to, and no one will let me, that kind of thing. And Won't Get Fooled Again. It's just 8 minutes of good ass kicking rock. I'm sorry. And in that middle section of, using the synthesizer on it, it's just amazing. And for you guys out there that can afford to get the infamous box set, the 10 CD, 1 Blu-ray, there is a 13-minute version of, I believe it's Bubba O'Reilly on that. And I don't know, 13 minutes for me is a bit much. It's all instrumental, and it just, like I said like I said to Ken, it just seemed around the 12-minute mark. He's like, okay, I don't know how to end this song, but I got to end it somehow. Okay, we'll do the fade out right here, kind of thing. It's like, you don't need 13 minutes, but you know what? For anyone that wants as much hue as you can stand, that box set is for you. Okay, and this album is perfect. The only thing that would have made it slightly better for me is if they included the studio recording of Heaven and Hell, which is on box set. Okay. This album is perfection. Heaven and Hell, the studio recording, just would have made it that much more sweeter for me. But that's my opinion, right? So there you go, guys. My number 2 perfect album for day 2 of 31 perfect albums.
I read in an interview with Pete Townsend that Behind Blue Eyes, within the context of Lifehouse, was a song from the point of view of the antagonist, which I think is very interesting, to take the bad guy and is not just a hand-wringing bad guy, but actually getting inside his head and saying, hey, now, wait a minute. From his perspective, I think is very creative.
Yeah.
When my fist clenches, crack it open. That's powerful. I mean, that's something to just reflect on as a person every day.
Yeah, no, and there's with James Dean, there's that movie, and the name is escaping me now.
A Rebel Without a Cause?
Rebel Without a Cause. That's the one I was just thinking about right now when I was trying to describe, you know, the character in Behind Blue Eyes. To me, that's the one person, that one character that would fit that, you know, that story in the song. So, yeah, I mean, again, top to bottom, faction. Yeah. And I'm sorry that it took me until the box set coming out for me to really appreciate this album. I swear to God, it's like unreal how good this album is.
Yep.
So there you have
Best
it,
album of
guys.
1971. Oh, sorry.
1971.
Best album of 1971, according to our show we did a few months ago.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So there you have it, guys. Day 2 of 31 perfect albums. You know, put your comments down below, and you know what you believe is your perfect album for 1971. Again, we are not experts by any means for our selections. You know, this is just our opinion, and we would like to get people's comments and get people interacting for these episodes. So please put your comments down below. And for Bill, Ken, and Jim, I'm Armando Venditti signing off, and we will see you very soon with episode 3 of 31 Perfect Albums. Bye for now.